to follow up on our last show we taped here. Richard next to me is a huge fan of aviation and has done several interesting segments about aviation, but nothing can compare to the last segment we did, the last show. I kind of promised this to Richard for several months, and it was hard getting a hold of this guy, but last show we made it happen. Turns out that you guys all familiar with the famous flight Miracle on the Hudson, where the plane landed on the ocean? Well, it turns out that the air traffic controller on that famous flight happens to be a Long Beach resident, Patrick Harten. And I happened to meet Patrick the day before our show, and I said, how would you like to do an interview about that famous flight, the miracle flight where the plane landed on the ocean and everyone survived? I called up Richard immediately. I said, you got an interview tomorrow with Patrick Harten. He stayed up all night. He prepared for it. It was an incredible interview. I call it Richard's defining moment on the show. Richard, what has been the reaction been from that interview, and what, for you personally, the experience of interviewing a person, Patrick Harten, maybe one of the most famous flights in our history?
Very inspirational, for one. The interview has changed a lot for me in the sense that I'm now looking at myself as an advocate for bird strikes and for getting what the aviation public needs to fight bird strikes. I think that a lot of people don't realize that flocks of birds are very, very dangerous when you mix with jet engines. That is a recipe for disaster. And this, by all accounts, what Harten said was so heartfelt, the fact that he had nightmares for 2 weeks after the incident, that he could, even though the incident that occurred had a positive ending, he still had nightmares that this plane crashed and that everyone died. You know, air traffic controllers are very, very emotional when it comes to their jobs. I know 2 controllers, aside from Patrick Harten, from my school, and both of them have seen the interview, and they said dead on that he's more than just a hero. He is an inspiration to them because it's a tough job. Nobody wants to be locked in a room, pitch black darkness with a radar screen in front of you for like 8 hours on end, but you do it because you love what you do. You do it because you're committed to getting these large machines on the ground and in the air. And he explained in such detail the process of the emergency itself, the fact that Sully was so calm in the cockpit, which is remarkable because here's a man who just lost both engines. By all accounts, this is a flying brick. It's like the space shuttle. And to land this airplane so perfect in the Hudson with the tail hitting ever so gently, and that's a key part, Howie, when he brought up the tail. That to me was key because anybody who knows aviation, anyone who watches the news, knows that water landings usually do not end well. The reason they don't end well is because you're trying to land an object on an angle and you don't pitch proper, you snap the wings right off the plane. So he brought the plane in tail first, and the whole time Harten was very emotional. And you could see in his reflections when I interviewed him, you could see that this is a man who genuinely believed this was not going to end well. Because 9 out of 10 times, you've never had an incident where both engines have failed. Never has there ever been an incident on record where there's been a bird strike where both jet engines have failed.
Yeah. Now, Richard, I think when you started with us a while ago, you never, in your wildest dreams, ever imagined you'd do an interview like this. So just feedback from friends and people who've watched the video of you interviewing Patrick Harten, it's got to be an amazing experience.
Absolutely, Howie. My family is very proud of me. My cousin David watched the video. My cousin David, he doesn't understand aviation the way that I do. He watched it and he said that why you don't do this for a living is beyond me. And honestly, it has changed for me. It's made me more aware of just how arduous a responsibility it is to fly an airplane. It's made me, as a aviation enthusiast, more aware of how important it is to take the time to know your surroundings, to know the situation, and to remain calm, cool, and collected. And that's exactly what Harten did. He stayed calm, he stayed cool, he stayed collected, and that's why you have a positive result that you do. Because Harten knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't hesitate. He even said that they use his voice in training for other air traffic controllers.
It's an amazing story. I'm glad that you're getting great feedback, and it was an amazing interview.